When you look at a job and think, I need to hire somebody else, while I love to employ people and I love to help their families, hiring, in my opinion, is the last thing you want to do because it's the most expensive. You might be making great money on paper, but your bank account don't show it. I'm telling you, you ever been cash poor? Well, I have too. And we're going to talk today about how to do that and what the ways of stopping that because we don't need to be cash poor. We won't be cash flush. So I can remember a time where, shit, boy, I had all kinds of sales, but I didn't have no money. And that sounds funny. And you can look on paper all day long and say, what's going on? Even job costing, we talk about job costing, you can look at it and say, well, damn, I should have made money on that. Well, you did somewhat, but there's other things in play that you got to think about and you got to incorporate into your hourly wages and so forth. You ever had a time, it really comes down to poor job costing is one of them. And you ever had a time where you just didn't think about it? You got to add your overhead into your hour rate. And it can be easy, it can be hard. I'm used to doing it hard, and that's really getting down to nitty gritty. I think it'd be easy by rounding up and getting some numbers, but you got to have an idea. You got to have an idea where you're at as far as your cost goes. You got to have an idea what you're charging. You got to make sure it's within the marketplace. Just because you want to charge a certain price doesn't mean that the market can. And if you want to sell something for 10,000, and the highest out there is 5, you got to be pretty compelling to get that extra 5,000, and it ain't gonna happen. Just more likely, unless you come across somebody that is not shopping, which is unusual, or really trust you. But then, if you're really getting 5,000 more, that's double. You're taking advantage of them, in my opinion. That being said, that's one way. You got to add your tool cost in there. You can't forget about that. Even the maintenance of the tool, or even the replacement of the tool. Depreciation is it's a gift from the county, but it's actually a cost too. You got to add it into your hour rate. It's going to cost you. What if that hammer breaks? Or hammer? Well, we got those Milwaukee hammers now. That some bucks $300. What happens if it breaks? And you need more than one. So if it breaks, what happens? Well, your downtime plus the cost of replacing it. You ain't got time to get it fixed. You're going to have either an extra one or you're going to go buy a new one real quick just so you can keep working while you send the other one off. And there's freight involved in that. Is it under warranty? Is it not under warranty? It could be that it's just trash. You can throw it away. But those are costs you got to keep in place. And that eats up your cash real quick if you spend $200, $300 on a tool here and a couple there. What if you lose that tool? You ever been on a job site? You ever been on a job site and uh, found somebody else's tools? I have. I got a nice collection of stuff that people have left behind. Now, I don't always keep it if I know whose it is, but I got a few ladders. And I asked, who's this? We don't know. Like, okay, mine now. But that costs somebody something, and a good ladder ain't cheap. Oh. Unreliable labor. That's another way you can lose money. In the last episode, I talked about training, and I think training can get you more reliable labor, can make you less liable on more people. Now, I talk about a lot about delegating, and we'll talk about it later here too. But delegation is important, but just to hire more people isn't the answer. What I mean is you got to delegate and get something off your plate so you can do something more important. But you got to be able to give it to somebody and then make them be able to do more of what they have. So if it means buying somebody else some software or a tool or even a truck, if another truck, you can appreciate that. There's other advantages to having a truck, and it means that somebody can go do some more work, get you more sales, and now you're doing more work for that one person. But delegation is important, um, but it's only good if they know how to do it. So you got to do that training, make them more reliable. The other part is if that person can do more. If you have 10 people and you got 15 people, but you can do more with your 10 than you can your 15, that's just 5 less people you got to manage too. or your working foreman has to manage or whatever. And if they're trained, they're getting a higher dollar for what they do. So you can send a person over, and now you have a group of trained employees who are getting paid more for that particular job than it was somebody you send over that didn't know anything. And it takes them longer usually if somebody doesn't know anything as well. So training is very important to that. So there's a lot of hidden cost. That labor thing is also your fault. Well, what do you mean, Chris? Well, I said, hell, man, you gotta. I talk about communication, delegation, let go and stay to know. You gotta communicate before you delegate. And people like you and me, our heads run a lot faster than our mouths. Now, somebody's mouth runs faster than their brain, but they're ass. We're smart. We just got a lot of things in our head that we're working on. So I'm thinking, and you are too, way ahead of my mouth. And I think somebody might understand, and they don't. So you got to communicate properly, and that helps in that reliable labor because they have to understand what you're trying to achieve, whether it's a mission, a goal, or even just basic go do this installation and you want it a certain way or whatever it is to make sure the warranty's right. I know you guys do a lot of warranty work like HVAC guys for sure. Y'all have to have it installed properly. And you don't want to go back for warranty work. That costs you money unless it's a machine issue where the company, your supplier is going to pay you back. But a lot of that stuff don't include labor. Those warranties do not include labor. You know it, and I know it. It just includes parts, and that doesn't any good. And then you sure don't want them telling you, well, you didn't install it right. We're not going to pay for anything. And that comes bad on you. So a lot of training, a lot of communication, and that training is communication at the end of the day. Inefficient scheduling is another way that we can be losing money, not showing up in our bank accounts. The longer you take to do a job, the more it's going to cost you. It costs you in cash flow, really, because even though you got work in progress, that don't mean a damn thing. It means something on the income statement, but it don't mean a damn thing in your pocket, and it sure don't mean anything in your bank account because that money's not there to pay them bills. So you want to be efficient. You want to schedule properly. You want to use your people where they need to be and when they need to be there, so you can get that money coming through. And in your board, I love billing days. I want to bill. That's why I tell the guys all the time: get this job done so I can bill. Your accountant, your bookkeeper should be on your working foreman's rear, and I don't mean negatively, but if it's something at the top of mind, I got to finish so we can bill. And why do you need to bill? Well, part of my bills is your payroll, and I want to pay you. It got to be in that mindset of, hey, you're part of the business. It's a money machine. That money tree we talk about, that money tree can't have no leaves unless you're billing. Okay? All right. Reason you don't got any money is because you're underpricing. Where you can actually, charge that person 5,000 more. We mentioned earlier in that example, you can be charging that person 5,000 less, and you should be right where it needs to be on the market. You want to keep competitive. I don't like being the highest, but it's okay being the highest if that's what you want to do. You got to make sure your value is worth it. I like being somewhere in the middle. I don't want to be the cheapest either, because I think being the cheapest, people perceive that, and if you do that, you're going to get cheap clients, and cheap clients ain't worth a damn. That's just my opinion. Y'all might love cheap clients. That's okay. Just be prepared to handle them, prepared to deal with them, prepared to get that money and figure out how you can get it if they aren't happy. Just keep all that in mind. When it comes to overpricing, I like to take jobs and divide them up by what type they are. And what I mean by that is, if you got residential versus commercial, if you got, if you're a plumber or HVAC electrician, are you on a service call or on an installation? And track those. Do I make more money on installations, or do I make more money on service calls? I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were doing HVAC, and they make more money on installations. But I happen to know I got another friend who had an HVAC company, and I talked to him before. He makes more money on service calls because he can show up, be there 15 minutes, and charge me $150. If you're geared that way, that's fine. What that allows you to do, though, is allows you to look at your jobs on a type basis. And when time comes to crunch time, you look for easy cash, push more of those types of jobs. It makes more money and get you going. Um, the other thing is, if you're in a competitive situation, and you know that type of job you make much more profit on, or percentage wise, you can afford to come down just a tad to help make that happen. It doesn't hurt near as much or hurt at all for that matter. Because the other thing you got to think about, and I mentioned overhead earlier, you got to think about overhead. The more sales you get in a month, and sales is different than cash flow, meaning that not only the cash come in, but sales means the potential for cash coming in at some point. The more sales you can get in a month, you spread that overhead over more. So where a job, so your hour rate, you're estimating an hour rate of say $150 an hour. But now by spreading that overhead out, your cost was at $100 an hour, you're making $50 profit. Well, maybe spreading that overhead out, now your cost is at 75 on a percentage basis. But you want to be able to do more with what more people, the more types of jobs that are more efficient are the ones you want to focus on. I talked about delegating, and this goes in that other pricing part, is that when you look at a job and think, I need to hire somebody else. While I love to employ people and I love to help their families, hiring, in my opinion, is the last thing you want to do because it's the most expensive. If you can justify it, great. Or can you do more with what you have with a smaller investment? Software. I talk about tools again. The training. Can you train somebody that's already on your somebody already in your payroll that you can bump their wages up a little bit for more responsibility, but it doesn't cost near as much as a whole new employee? And not counting the extra training for somebody new, all the other costs and the overhead involved there. I remember a time we were doing the math, and a new employee, yeah, we forget about this, but we add the cost of the wage. But on average, at least our cost was 35% more than what the cost of a person. So in this case, I guess if you're making $10 an hour, that'd be what, $13.50 that you're really paying that person. And if you're not keeping that into your pricing, you're too low. You got to keep it right. And you might ask, well, Chris, well, how do I figure it out? I have painters. Painters. I had one painter, a really good painter. His price was always great. And it's like, yeah, this is good. Then all of a sudden his prices went back up. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do a little shopping. And I did. And they come in dollar for dollar for this other guy. And what they were doing, and I'm all for it. They Googled what it was to, that's my opinion, what they did, but they were billing per square foot. And that's maybe what you should do. The other guy, he was billing per hour. And while it helped me on my side, it wasn't helping him in his business. And by billing what the market does, he was making a whole lot more money, probably $2,000 or $3,000 per job, just right off the bat, just by upping his price to the market level. So I always do that. So this week, I'd like you to look at your income statements, get that weekly cash flow report, get an idea where you're at, kind of tie it to the schedule too. I've got this many jobs coming in. I got this many jobs to do. Here's my average bill rate. Get that in there. Look at it this week. Figure out how you can increase your prices, how you can do more of what you got. Look at appreciate your hour rates. Is it really working out? Figure out where you're at. And if you need some help with that, go to the show notes below. Get with me. We'll do a breakthrough session with you for free, just you and I, one-on-one. And as always, please, if you want to be part of a group of the Hard Hat to CEOs, join our Facebook group at Hard Hat to CEO. And we appreciate your time this week. It's Chris G with Hard Hat CEO, and we will talk to you again next week. Bye-bye.